Hello, my name is Robert Phillips, and today I will be giving you a presentation on improving negotiation skills, specifically with a focus on the cultural considerations you might want to take into account. Take, for example, if you are an American business and you are about to enter into negotiations with a Japanese business. There are certain cultural considerations you would want to take into account before moving into that situation. So without further ado, let's move on to the agenda. During this presentation, we are going to cover the different types of cultures, specifically high and low context cultures. We're going to give an example of each, continuing with the American Japanese examples given at the beginning. And then we're going to move on to exactly what that means in terms of improving your negotiation. And finally, some saved rounds left off at the conclusion. So the exact idea of the difference between high context and low context cultures is that explicit messages are exchanged differently. But there are more differences than just that. There's also differences in how people associate themselves, the way they interact, the way they see their territory, and other differences as well. It encompasses cultures as a whole, and they're all things that you need to take into account before you enter into serious negotiations with a foreign culture. You might walk into the room expecting things to go a certain way because you're used to, say, an American culture, but they might not end up being like that. You might get interpreted wrong because you're dealing with a foreign culture. And so it's important to understand the differences between these types of cultures and how they view these different things. American culture is denoted by having relationships that begin and end quickly. This is a low context culture. It's identity rooted in yourself. So you think of yourself as, Robert Phillips, for example, instead of, a student of City U in comparison to a high context culture, which we'll get into in a minute. Your verbal messages are direct. You're not, you're not beating around the bush, basically. You're getting to the point. Which is in contrast to a high context culture such as Japanese. With the Japanese culture, you're looking at relationships that are built on a long term. They're not looking at jumping into anything right away. Their identity is rooted in the group, so they're not an individual. They are their company. That is how they identify themselves. Their verbal messages might be indirect, so they might be saying something, but they might mean something else entirely. And their disagreement it's personalized. So if they're disagreeing with you directly, then that means that you aren't on good grounds with them. And so you maybe need to step back and look at your exit strategy. And so now let's actually look at the negotiation skills. So when we're talking in your negotiation skills, we need to have in mind the culture that you are dealing with. You need to go out there and research it and understand it, know the difference between how you are going to perceive things and how they are going to perceive things. Oftentimes, if you're dealing with a high context culture, you're going to really need to focus on building those relationships with these individuals before you even try and put anything on the table. Gift giving is often accepted. In certain countries, even bribing is accepted. And these are the types of things that you need to know before you even walk in the door. And keep in mind your body and facial expressions, because you might be saying things that can get interpreted in ways that could completely destroy any type of negotiations right off the bat. So in conclusion, I've said it before and I just wanted to say it one more time on these 2 points. Know the difference between high and low context culture. And before sitting down at the table to get into these negotiations, do your research. Know who is sitting across from you and understand yourself as well. With that being said, these should help you improve your negotiation skills, hopefully. And thank you for listening, and have a good day.